This is this between us.
The number one podcast in the world.
This is
the JBU.Show featuring Austin
from the Miller Talk Podcast.
ALLAN,
The American Sincerist.
and now your host,
Cam Allen.
All right, how's it going, everybody? My name is Chris, and this is the JBU.Show. And tonight, there is literally so much going on. We have so much stuff to cover because we've been off for a couple days, of course, and there's just, everything coming from every different direction. So you're going to have to bear with me. I've got 5,000 different stories up. We're going to get to as much as we can tonight. Austin's not joining me tonight, so we'll be able to plow through some of it. But obviously, main topic for tonight is Iran. What are we doing? Where are we going? Is this working out as good as we could hope? Could it be better? Could it be worse? What exactly is going on right now? I see Artemis is live hosting another news conference, so I was going to go to a silly video to start off like I often do, but instead, let's go to that real quick and see if there's anything interesting going on there. Unfortunately, I doubt it, but we're going to take a look here.
Okay, the thing that we saw that really surprised me the most is we trained to view the eclipse from the far side of the moon, or after going beyond the far side of the moon. We saw great simulations made by our lunar science team, but when that actually happened, it just blew us all away. I mean, you heard the reaction real time. But it was the fact that we trained for it, and it almost was a thing that we were, I don't want to say unhappy about, but launching on April 1st meant the far side wasn't as illuminated as we were hoping. And so, you know, that thing seemed to be a consolation, and it was one of the greatest
Oh my God,
gifts,
guys, the flag is
of that part of the
waving.
mission.
Okay, we'll come back here in the room to Andrea. Go ahead.
Wait, that is a
Hi,
cramped
Andrea
space.
Leinfelder with the Houston Chronicle. I'd like to hear about life inside Orion. Christina, in the fall you said the capsule would feel bigger in microgravity. Does it feel bigger? And at what moments do you find that you're bumping into your crewmates? And what tips will you be given to future crews?
Wow, we have loved living in Orion, and in fact, we've all said that sometimes you can forget where you really are because we're in this small space that just gives us everything we need. But the answer to your question is yes, it is bigger in microgravity, and yes, we are bumping into each other 100% of the time. A phrase that you often hear in the cabin is, "Don't move your foot, I'm just going to reach for something right under it," or, you know, "Can I get there? And my goal is to get over there." And we're constantly moving around, whether it's to complete a task, to just eat, you know, to look out the window, to take a picture. Everything we do in here is a 4-person activity. But it's also really fun.
Okay, we'll take our next question from Will.
Interesting.
Go ahead.
Thank you, Will Robinson Smith with Spaceflight Now. It's good to talk with you all. Victor, I want to go to a comment that you made a couple of hours into the lunar observations. You said, and I quote you here, "The Terminator is calling to me." What was it about the observation of the Terminator specifically that was so captivating for you?
So for those
and the
curious
rest of your
too.
crew? Thank you.
Oh, hold on, I'll let him answer, and then they are on the return trip. They've gone around the moon, obviously.
One being 3,500 miles from it. I mean, it was so big, and now it wasn't an image on a screen, but it was all of the things we had talked about in training, the terrain, how you can see features based on how high they are above the surface and how low things were. And there were holes that, craters that appeared to just be endless, bottomless pits, and then peaks that seemed to be, I couldn't tell
some
how
pictures
high,
to
but
show
you
you
could just
from this
really get a
too.
sense of the relief down on the surface, and to look down on it from so close or over at it from so close was just, it was hard to describe. When you are in an airplane flying back past, Flagstaff, you're looking out the window trying to, identify meteor crater, or looking out trying to find the Grand Canyon. And this was the same thing. But imagine if you had seen meteor crater or the Grand Canyon for the first time.
Our next question is from the phone bridge from Lauren Grush with Bloomberg.
Hi, so great to talk to you for. The world has been watching along with your journey with such enthusiasm and joy. Do you have any sense or feedback of how your mission has reached the masses back on Earth? And does that influence you at all when you speak and narrate your journey?
Thank you for this question. We have had, I'm going to answer it a little bit differently than it was asked, but I'll get there in a second. But we have had a chance, the four of us, we've had 2 opportunities each to have very brief video chats with our families. And I will tell you, first of all, the 4 of us are now forged in a friendship that is very unique, and we will cherish this bond that we share for the rest of our lives. And then one of the neatest things being a crewmate on this spacecraft is not being in the family conference, but hearing your crewmates giggling and crying and just gasping and listening and loving their families from afar. Family is so important to all 4 of us, and that has been amazing. And when I got to talk to my daughters, Ellie and Katie, for the first time, I just couldn't even speak. I was just so overjoyed. I was crying. I mean, it is an amazing experience. But what also came from that is really our source of news on planet Earth. And those family members have been our source of how the mission is going from the public perspective. Obviously, they're all biased. Although most of our kids are teenagers, so maybe they're not quite that biased, but they're biased. But what we had really hoped, and we said it a lot before, I mean, we really are here to serve NASA, to serve our 2 nations, Canadian Space Agency, NASA, and the international community, and we're here to serve for Artemis 3. But what we really hoped in our soul is that we could, for just a moment, have the world pause and remember that this is a beautiful planet in a very special place in our universe, and we should all cherish what we have been gifted. And I think for the folks that decided to tune in, and it sounds like it was quite a few, this has happened, and for that we are eternally grateful.
Our next question is from Noah Haggerty with the Los Angeles Times.
All right, I think we're going to move on from this because this mostly is just.
From you all.
Let's see one more.
You had 40 minutes of a pretty profound solitude. You were, farther from Earth than any humans before you. No means to communicate with Earth. It was really just the 4 of you, the spacecraft, and the moon. Can you talk us through what that moment felt like?
Well, Courtney's running this press conference, and she knows I always speak the truth, sometimes with a little bit of embellishment. But I will tell you exactly as it went. When we watched that Earth eclipse behind the moon, wow, I'm actually getting chills right now just thinking about my
If you want to see
sweating,
this, like I said, Fox is streaming it on X right now. You can tune over there. But we're going to get to what we got going on here. I suppose since we did start with that, President Trump ended up having a conference with them the other night, right after we stopped streaming them on the far side of the moon. We were live while they were going around the far side of the moon for the few moments that they lost contact. And then right after we got off air, President Trump ended up hosting a video conference with them. And so I just have a brief clip of that here. And then I'm going to show you some pictures that we've gotten, supposedly high-res photos that we've gotten back already of the far side of the moon. Yep, this is it right here. Okay.
Tell me, what is the most unforgettable part of this really historic day? The whole world is watching and listening, please tell me.
President, this call is certainly special to all of us, and we really have a lot of faith in our administrator, Jared Isaacman, who is with you. We appreciate his leadership in NASA and in the international community. We are doing great things, and we are proud to be a part of. I have to tell you, as we came around the near side of the moon, seeing all the sights that we've seen from Earth for all of our lives, but we're seeing them from a different perspective, and then we started to get a glimpse of the and we saw sites, Oriental sites that no human has ever seen before, not even in Apollo, and that was amazing for us. And then the surprise of the day, we just came out of an eclipse where the sun, moon, and the entire dark moon about that big right out the window that we were watching. We could see the corona of the sun, and then we could see the planet train line up, and at Mars, and all of us commented how excited we are to watch this nation and this planet become a two-planet species.
Pretty cool. So, as I was saying, they are on their return trip now. They are, I believe, 2 days away from splashdown.
Tell me what.
So far, everything seems to be going okay, besides the minor toilet incident, which did not prove to be too big of a concern, apparently. Nonetheless, I have here some of these photos, so let's pull these up, and I will put them full screen too. Let's see, I think that'll show over that one. Yeah, it looks good here. Sorry, just a second while I adjust this so that these photos are appropriately in. Oh, wrong one. Okay. Is that the right one? That's the right one. Appropriately in frame here. All right, here we go. So I'll pull these up. These come from the Associated Press. This one, not all that great. It kind of just looks like a regular screensaver, but they said these are all high-res photos, except as you can clearly see, the resolution isn't all that good. So I don't know if they screwed up and, you know, their website limits it or something, or maybe mine does. My browser, for some reason. I don't know why it would, but nonetheless, they are at least supposedly the best photos we have of the dark side of the moon right now. There's one. You have this photo looking out of the capsule here. I believe there's 4 different windows, so they all had individual windows that they could look out of the capsule with, which is kind of cool. This is probably the closest photo of the moon I think we've ever gotten, besides allegedly the photos on the moon. And I tell you, it looks weird from this angle. Knowing that that surface is so large. So that would be like looking down damn near at, let's say, Australia. Let's say Australia would fit in that photo. That's how far out you are zoomed from the moon. But we also know what the size of the moon dust is. And just when we look at it, I don't know, it just doesn't seem like it's that far away. It doesn't look that big either. It's a weird thing. But I don't know. These whole, the scale thing and all of that, just, it's not my thing. I can't pretend it is. So, nonetheless, I'm not really sure why they're all wearing 3D glasses in this photo, but there you go. Or maybe these are solar for the sun. We couldn't do better than cardboard. I don't know. Here's another one. This one looks a lot grittier, for lack of a better way to put it. Also, if they're on the dark side of the moon, how were they able to see anything? Wouldn't it just be black? And I'm not questioning whether or not they're actually there or anything. I'm not one of those people. I just have questions, and I don't have answers for those questions. That's all. Yeah. Anyway, that's all we got. 4 photos is all we have so far. I'm sure we'll be getting more in the coming days, and I will share those with you when they come in. So, having done that now, oh, sorry. Let me put that last one up. real quick. I meant to put it on full screen for you, and I didn't. There you go. You can take a look for a second. So you can see this one looks a lot grittier than this other one did here. It's a great photo with the Earth in the background and stuff, obviously, but those look like two different surfaces almost. And I get it, they're not the same part of the moon, right? But I'm sure there will be internet sleuths picking these things apart for the next several weeks. Anyway, before we move into more stories here, let's go ahead and get to the video I was going to play real quick. Switch this over.
Can't stop thinking about how grass lawns are racist and like based in white supremacy.
Makes sense. Yep. That definitely makes sense.
If that doesn't make sense, that's okay, I guess. It seems really obvious to me. It's really upsetting. Bring back weeds. Bring back clover yards.
Why?
Look, can we just can anything just be okay in its natural state, or do we just have to whitewash everything, make it a competition, and use it as a sign of your worth as a human being in society? Like, can we just have weeds? I can't stop thinking about
that right there. I think is it highlights a big difference between men and women, not just liberals and, you know, not crazy people. Because it's not, you know, women like to say it's always about competition with men, and it is to some degree, although I will put some argument into that actually later in the show. I've been wanting to talk about sports for a while. But before I do, or without getting to that yet, I mean, it is kind of a value of our worth to take care of our stuff, in a sense. That might be overstating it a bit, but it's just taking care of what's yours. Wanting something to look nice it's obviously not racist, just nonsense, but there's nothing wrong with it either. If you want to see something in its natural state, there's a billion places to go and do that. And I don't necessarily have a problem with it. But taking care of your yard, and you don't have to have a grass yard, but even if you have a more natural yard with weeds or, you know, other plants or whatever, you should still take care of it. It should still be manicured and clean, for lack of a better word. It shouldn't just be overgrown and unkept. That is a sign that human life is here. Like, I don't understand what doesn't compute in an environmentalist or a liberal's head, that humans are natural to this planet too. And just like there are signs that a bear has been here, there are signs that a human has been here. One of those is taking care of a particular location. Wherever we decide to call home, we tend to improve upon it. Something that we are the only species that can do. Just like when a beaver dams a river. Are they ruining the river? I mean, they're causing problems in a lot of ways for the fish and all of that, but are they ruining the river? No. It's a sign that a beaver lives there. What is wrong with that? Men need the ability to, I don't know any other way to put it besides take care of what is theirs, whether it's their family, whether it's their home, whether it's their car. That's just part of what we do. We try to improve upon things, or at least keep them in their best condition. If we're not doing that, it's probably because something's wrong. Anyway. Let me see what else we got here that isn't Iran war directly just yet. Good Lord, there's so much. I mean, just an absolute never-ending deluge of crap. Okay, yeah, let's do this. So, it's kind of brushing the edges of the Iran war, but not really. So, MAGA has been infighting a lot over the last few weeks. In fact, I've had this story here from... Who is it from? Hang on, I gotta find it now. Newsmax. Trump must win the shadow war against him. I've had it on the playlist here for, I don't know, 2-3 weeks now. And funny enough, it's more relevant now than ever. In fact, I didn't realize that this particular episode of infighting had been going on this long. We know that Tucker Carlson, Megyn Kelly, and then, of course, more on the fringes, Nick Fuentes and Candace Owens, have been just losing their minds ever since this Iran war. We know that there's a small segment of Republicans and MAGA that is unhappy about the Iran war. I'm not particularly thrilled about it, but I'm not, jumping ship because of it either. And it's a very interesting thing to watch. Democrats are loving this, right? Because nobody likes Democrats right now. Democrats don't like Democrats. So the more we're fighting, the more we're splitting our party, the more it just benefits them. And that's, I think, what's most annoying to most of us about this. And I think that it's pretty clear at this point, at least for 3 of these figures, that there's really nothing... I don't know about Megyn Kelly because I haven't actually seen anything of hers directly, but having seen specific posts from Candace, specific videos from Fuentes, which I'm going to play in a minute, and specific videos from Tucker, which I'm going to play in a minute, I think it's pretty clear that there are underlying motivations, although different ones for each of them, that are playing a hand in this. And I don't think that the fallout from this is actually nearly as widespread as they can make it seem. And I think that most people are going to realize that are listening to them. I think most of them are going to realize that pretty quickly. I think a lot did over the weekend with Tucker Carlson. But we'll go from there in a minute. Let me read this story from Josh Hammer at Newsmax. The joint American-Israeli military operation against the Iranian regime is now 3 weeks old. But there's another war, a more silent one, raging here at the home front. President Donald Trump's second administration is facing a highly coordinated shadow war, one waged by some influential outside voices on the right, and more dangerously by their subversive allies within the Trump government itself. If this campaign is not confronted and decisively defeated, the result will be calamitous. A second Trump term that drifts into lame duck status not due to a voter backlash, but because of an insurrection from within. What this column has previously referred to as Operation Divide MAGA has reached fever pitch, and Trump, to his great credit, has begun to settle all the MAGA family business. But an even more concerted effort is needed to clean out the Augean stables. Excuse me, I have no idea what that word is. Once and for all. First, let's take a step back. In any healthy political coalition or movement, debate is inevitable and often desirable. But what we have seen from certain high-profile podcasters, such as Tucker Carlson and Megyn Kelly, is nothing less than a full-scale assault on Trump and his agenda. These provocateurs first outed themselves last summer, when they all but accused Trump, and they fully accused Trump at this point, of covering up a global Mossad-tied pedophile ring over his Justice Department's handling of the Epstein files, which, by the way, we all agree was fucked.
Authorities of the administration, they purport to support the effect.
Sorry, I'm not even sure where that was. But above all, the podcaster Subversion has focused on foreign policy, most recently on Iran and Operation Epic Fury. Trump is a conservative nationalist. His foreign policy is rooted in confidence and peace through strength style deterrence. Yet Carlson, Kelly, and their fellow travelers have blasted the Iran conflict as everything from evil, Carlson, to clearly Israel's war, Megyn Kelly. The not-so-dynamic duo is thus accusing the man they quite literally campaigned for in 2024 of engaging in heinous acts and of being the unwitting dupe of a foreign government. True, Carlson and Kelly do not actually speak for the MAGA base. A brand new poll from JL Partners shows that 83% of Republican voters support Epic Fury, and it's actually as high as 100% according to CNN and Ipsos, which I'll go to that in a second. Moreover, Republicans agree with Trump and Carlson and Kelly on foreign policy by a whopping 84 to 6% margin. Let me read that again. A brand new poll from JL Partners shows that 83% of Republican voters support Epic Fury. Moreover, Republicans agree with Trump over Carlson and Kelly, there we go, on foreign policy by a whopping 84 to 6% margin. But still, their platforms are enormous. When Kelly, Carlson, and their allies consistently excoriate the leading priorities of the administration they purport to support, the effect is Republican voter confusion, resentment, and depression as we head toward November in the midterm election this year. Even worse, the shadow war subversives are not merely shouting into the microphones from the rafters. They have allies inside the administration with whom they are all but assuredly coordinating, engaging in outright sabotage against one man, the President of the United States, who was actually elected to wield the executive power of the federal government and serve as Commander-in-Chief. The most alarming developments are emerging from within the Office of the Director of National Intelligence, Tulsi Gabbard. A former Democratic Hawaii congresswoman with a pro-Moscow slant, once seen as a heterodox ally, Gabbard now oversees an environment that increasingly bears the markings of an anti-MAGA coup. Interesting, I haven't heard much about her. Take Gabbard's recent rehiring of Dan Caldwell, dismissed last year by his former longtime friend, Secretary of War Pete Hegseth. Amid allegations of leaking, Caldwell is now back in a highly sensitive role. That is very interesting. Leaks of this nature are not bureaucratic slip-ups. They're a direct assault on national security and the integrity of the constitutional chain of command. It is difficult to interpret the isolationist lean Gabbard's move as anything other than a direct shot across the bow at Hegseth, and by extension, the boss Hegseth has so passionately defended since Epic Fury began. Consider also Joe Kent, who until recently served under Gabbard as director of National Counterterrorism, the National Counterterrorism Center. Kent very recently resigned in flamboyant fashion, rationalizing his stunt with hyper-conspiratorial anti-Semitic rhetoric better suited for Code Pink rally than government letterhead. Within hours after tendering his resignation, Kent announced he would be joining, who else? Carlson, to tell his story. An alleged serial leaker, Kent is now under a FBI investigation for spilling national security secrets. Unsurprisingly, Iranian regime propaganda television gobbled up the interview and regurgitated it for an impressionable English-speaking audience. Yeah, shocking. Sorry. That Kent came to Carlson's platform to try to get ahead of the FBI investigation revelation is not a coincidence. It's orchestrated. After being fired by Hegseth last year, Caldwell similarly ran to Carlson to tell his side of the story. Moreover, one of Caldwell's higher-ranking colleagues on ODNI, Will Ruger, shares Caldwell's professional background in the isolationist Koch network. Surprise! The White House Presidential Personnel Office, formerly directed by ex-Senator Rand Paul, staffer Sergio Gore, since shipped halfway around the world to India, has allowed in individuals across the defense, intelligence, and national security spaces that are functionally anti-MAGA. Perhaps this was done for self-serving reasons. Perhaps Gore and PPO were under the understanding that MAGA is something other than what the boss says it is. Frankly, it doesn't really matter, because the boss has now spoken. He's cast Carlson and Kelly out of MAGA in emphatic fashion, and after Kent's obnoxious resignation stunt, Trump said, of those like Kent who do not believe Iran is a threat to the United States, We don't want those people. Translation, get out. The message couldn't possibly be clearer. But is Trump PPO listening? Is Gabbard's ODNI fully in line? Gabbard in U.S. Senate testimony this week couldn't bring herself to agree with her boss's assessment that Iran posed an imminent threat prior to the launch of Epic Fury. It's time for the president to team up with the White House Chief of Staff, Susie Wiles, and other ARC loyalists, such as Deputy Chief of Staff Stephen Miller, and clean house. The internal anti-MAGA sabotage must be ended, and the external anti-MAGA sabotage must be combated. The success of the remainder of Trump's second term hangs in the balance. And we're going to talk a little bit about what that means here in just a second. I worry about the loyalist, not loyalist thing, but at the same time, this is the most hated man to ever hold the office of president. This is the most attacked man to ever hold the office of president. We know that the courts, the NGOs, of course, the party, the Democrat Party, and every possible apparatus that could be against him is 24/7 working against him. He is by far the most investigated, the most hated, and the most spied on man in the world. By far. And yet, they still have nothing. And that's really, I think, what's most important. Now, we've talked a little bit about what the U.S. has gotten out of this war, even if we end up with nothing that the news is talking about us wanting to get. But we're going to talk about that a little bit more, obviously. But the other thing is, elections are coming up. And normally, what would happen is the opposition party for whoever's holding the presidency would take back over after the next election. We cannot let that happen because Donald Trump becomes a lame duck president. Nothing ends up getting done, and we end up with a pitiful amount of change for all the effort we've spent all this time putting in. And I understand why there are people, especially after Iran, that are questioning Donald Trump. I question him every single day. And there's no other way for me to put that. I understand why there are people that are questioning, not happy about certain things, etc. But we worked so hard to get to this point, and we tolerated and put up with so much to get to this point. I cannot understand why anyone would be willing to take away the ability to let it continue. First of all, what's the worst that's going to happen over the next 2 years if we allow him to maintain the House, the Senate, actually gain 60 votes so that we can actually get something done? Most of the things people are always angry about is Congress anyway. It's not the presidency. And the things that are the presidency, well, you can't have every voter can't have exactly what they want. It doesn't work that way. And we all kind of know that. And so I want to take a minute to show you, because Democrats are trying to shed their skin, obviously, and they're trying to change course. Trying to appeal to these disgruntled MAGA that allegedly exist, as well as their own base, who absolutely hate them right now. And understandably so. But I want to demonstrate how we can look at the news from today, and by today I mean over the last week, and prove that nothing has changed whatsoever. Because nothing has changed whatsoever, and it's not going to. They want the same things they've always wanted. And if we were to kneecap Donald Trump in the midterms by not showing up, by not voting, by not giving him MAGA Congress members to support the agenda, we will be right back to DEI, wasteful fraud, increased spending, increased taxes, and expansion of government. And a lot worse, obviously. But those would be the main overlaps. Excuse me. Let me let's take a look here at some of the examples I got. I have so many. Let's see. Here you go. Here's one. Now remember, they said that this wasn't true. They said that this was a big, MAGA scare tactic. That this never existed. Nobody ever actually wanted this. Here you go with the World Economic Forum right there at the top. Paris is planning to become a 15-minute city. Where everything you need is within a 15-minute radius. The aim is to cut car use, resulting in fewer CO2 emissions and cleaner air, along with more pleasant urban life. Paris Mayor Annie Hidalgo wants every street to have a cycle lane and proposes removing 60,000 parking spots, replacing them with green space allotments and playground instead. Paris has already banned cars one Sunday a month and along the river Canal. During lockdown, they created 50 kilometers of more cycle lanes. And FYI, cyclists here in America, they love to point to Paris as, well, if you just add more cycle lanes, more people would cycle. It's only like 5% in Paris. Only like 5% of the population actually cycles. So they take out car lanes that are used by 98% of the population, or 95, I guess, in Paris, so that 5% of the people can bike occasionally. Because I don't care what you say, nobody is riding their bicycle every single day to go every single place they go, like you do with your car. Nobody. If you have a bike, you have a car too, or you at least use some other form of transportation with it. I don't care what you say. I don't buy it. The only reason you wouldn't is because you can't. You can't afford it. You can't have it for some reason or another. You don't have a license, whatever it is. That would be the only reason that you actually rely on a bicycle for 100% of your transportation. But again, this is a tiny percent because you cannot get people to take the ultimate form of individual transport, the automobile, and trade it for a lesser form of transport, a bicycle or public transit or any combination thereof, unless by force. Just like you cannot get people to live in a 15-minute city in any sort of broad numbers. Yes, you can get 5% of the population to sign up for that. But you cannot get any significant numbers. We've tried this all the way back to Roosevelt, Eleanor Roosevelt's Magic City, LBJ's wife's Magic City, right? That every progressive in history has tried to create these magic cities where everything is perfectly laid out and set up so that, life is just better. It's never worked. It never does work because you can't have top-down force. It doesn't work. Humans will naturally just object to it because they don't like being forced to do things. And again, we were told this was a myth. This was a scare tactic by conservatives. Here they are bragging about the idea. And we told you at the time when we did tell you about this and they were calling it a scare tactic, we showed you the documents where they talked about it openly. And a lot of you just dismissed it. In the 15-minute city, buildings are used for multiple purposes. Schools might host different activities at the weekend, for the example. And the concept aims to nurture local pride in urban dwellers. The pandemic has led many cities to rethink design as people keep to their local something. Paris isn't the first to adopt the hyperlocal model. Melbourne is testing out 20-minute neighborhoods. Some critics say hyperlocalism could inhibit the cluster effect, often cited as key to the success of cities. I'm not sure what the cluster effect is. And trust me, that's not all critics say. Whereby specialists and their competitors work in close proximity, leading to faster innovation. Oh, So critics say that it's even better than we thought. Yeah, that's not what critics say. And Milan is running a 15-minute pilot in the Lazaretto area. The 15-minute concept was developed by Sorbonne professor Carlos something, based on work by Jane Jacobs, who thought a neighborhood wasn't just about buildings, but social networks too. Oh. Could your area be a 15-minute neighborhood? Now look, well, we're almost done. So follow your pioneer, change, 1620 November, yeah, whatever. Pioneers of change. So look, this might work in some European cities to some degree, because these cities were built hundreds of years ago before we had cars. They're already tiny. They're already impossible to drive around. Cities like Paris are a great example. For that reason, their options are limited. This is not true in America, where we have just a never-ending expanse of land, essentially. We all live on like 1% of the available land. We farm on about 10% of it. And most of our infrastructure has been built around the automobile. Why? Because we are rich in comparison. We have the money to afford it, and even the poorest Americans can afford to drive. I get it. Some of you that live in downtown cities think that it'll just be magical if we take out all cars and everything's just walking. It won't be. It doesn't work that way. You've seen government implement these things. Does it ever work out like promised? There isn't enough density in the United States. Even the most densest city in America, New York, Manhattan Island, is about half as dense as the densest cities in Europe. Europe is a much smaller place overall. There's obviously expansive areas, but most of it is pretty small, with far denser population and far poorer population that can't afford to drive everywhere they go, even if they can afford to drive some of where they go. Driving is 25 to 50% of a European income in some cases. Just owning a car in general. It's damn near as much as a house. That's not how it is here in the United States. Now, if you want to buy the latest and greatest car, it might be 10%, maybe up to 20% of your income, if you're living beyond your means anyway. But for most of us, it's, 10% or less. And if you own your cars, it's a lot less. Driving is maybe 5% of my income. Maybe. And because that's just gas and registration. And occasional repairs, I guess. But look, your car is right there to go wherever you want to go, whenever you want to go. There's no waiting around. There's no schedule. There's no timing around what time the bus leaves, what time the train leaves. I don't have to put on a wetsuit to ride to work because it's raining so that my clothes are dry when I get there. I know wetsuit wasn't the right term, but rain gear. I can bring whatever I need with me. I can pick up whatever I need, up to and including fucking furniture if I want to, and bring it home with me. When I get groceries, I don't have to limit myself to what I can carry. I can get a month's worth if I want to. By the way, is why we invented things like Costco, where we save shit tons of money because we can carry these things home. You wouldn't be able to carry home a Costco-sized thing of toilet paper in Europe or anywhere that you have to take the bus. I get it. Cars aren't perfect. Of course it isn't. It does lead to more expansive cities. It does mean that you are starting to limit the ability to walk places if we have an ideal amount of space, like you see in certain places in Texas, certain places in Florida, and other places that, were a little more conscious of cars when they started building out infrastructure. And also, their infrastructure has been built more as of late, unlike California and New York, when cars were a little bit less popular or just starting to come onto the scene. So I get it. It's not perfect. But it's still the number one choice that 99.99999% of people are going to choose. And when you take out, let's say there's 4 lanes of traffic in downtown, 2 parking lanes. If we take out one of those 4 lanes to put in a bike lane, you are taking away 25% of people's lane. You are taking away 25% of the population's car lane to drive in the city and replacing it with a lane that will serve 1% of people part of the time. Where's the justice in that? It's weird. I don't hear anybody explaining where the justice is in that. It's almost like that silence means something. So anyway, is getting back to the actual point here, I'm demonstrating nothing has changed. They're going to try and change their stripes. They're going to try and pretend that they are something other than they are. In reality, we can see all the signs. Nothing has changed. Here's another example from a popular left-wing X account. It says, people ask me all the time, why do you talk about Trump so much? He's just trying to do his job. Leave him alone. And I'm like, of course, this never happened, but this just shows you the mindset. I was living my life, minding my own business, and then this guy comes along and wants to deport my friends. Okay, well, first of all, if he's deporting your friends are illegal aliens. He's not deporting your friends, he's enforcing the law. Demonize the people I love. Okay. Degrade women. Some women degrade themselves. A man calling that out. E. Jean Carroll, for example, one of the women that he degraded, was on CNN to talk about this brutal rape that she could not get past and couldn't help but hit on, what's his name on CNN at the time? Jake Tapper. Live. On air. Sorry. That type of woman. It takes a special type of person to do that. We'll just put it that way. And then, Hillary Clinton, for example, she's done a whole host of god-awful things, not just to the country, but to people personally that we all know about. Kind of seems like fair game. Perfectly okay to demonize men all you want, but as soon as it's a woman, well, now it's a different thing. Wreck the climate. Tell me how he's wrecked the climate. Tell me one specific way Donald Trump has wrecked the climate. Decimate the economy. Sabotage the arts. Militarize our cities. Destabilize the world. Start World War III. Really? We're in World War III? These people live in delusions. This is your only other option. And endanger the life of every living thing on the planet. Really? Okay. All right. Let's see. We'll come back to the Dignity Act here in a minute. Here's another example of how leftists haven't changed.
It's so hard to quantify that, right? So when people come to me and say, what have been the negative effects of the great feminization? That, I think, is at the very top of my list. That's one of the most important ones, that if you've got HR ladies planted in every single institution and who see it as their mission to get rid of exactly that maverick type of personality, there's so much innovation that we're missing out on, but we don't know what would have been. One of the cancellations that affected me very emotionally, very deeply, was, I can't remember the guy's name, but he was the astronomer or astrophysicist who had just like landed a satellite on a comet or something really impressive like that, but he was wearing the t-shirt with the scantily clad ladies on it. It was like a bowling t-shirt.
I remember this.
Yeah, and somebody said, oh no, he's got scantily clad women on his t-shirt, and they put him through a struggle session for disrespecting women. And I was thinking, this guy just landed a satellite on a comet. Focus on that. He's so impressive, and you're putting him through this horrible public shaming. But that's the way wokeness works. It doesn't even register to these people that this guy has done something deeply scientifically impressive, that he might be a singular human being. For all you know, he might be the only person on the planet who could have done that. And all you care about is the shirt he's wearing.
And I know a lot of people are saying, why are you showing us this? Right? We all know. We all know this stuff. We've lived through it. Yeah, but it seems like a lot of you have forgotten. I get Donald Trump's not everything you ever hoped he would be. I get it. But let's not forget how we got here. And until you can hold up a better replacement, and you can't replace him until 2030 anyway, why the fuck would you argue to turn power over to these people?
As the clock is ticking, and I'm not going to mince my... We need to talk about this more because the clock is ticking, and I'm not going to mince my words.
Okay,
Our United States military that swore an oath to uphold and protect and defend the United States Constitution against enemies foreign and domestic need to stage a military coup. And
need to stage a military coup. Now, I don't know what I call this, but I know what the founding fathers called it. They called it treason, and they didn't mince words about that either. There were many people that had far more legitimate grievances with the U.S. government in the way that we were using the military against things that even the president himself disagreed with, but was in fact the law at the time, talking about slavery. They had far more important grievances than you that the founders still recognized as treason, because they still recognized that we have a functioning system. And if you don't like something that's happening in a functioning system that isn't a violation of the law or Constitution, which that tweet wasn't, you don't just get to call for treason. Seems pretty clear. I went to bat on this with a lot of leftists. I'm going to let him finish here in a second. But I'll ask you, before I let this finish, name one thing that Donald Trump has done that exceeded his power. I can name one. That was the tariffs. Even though literally every single president since George Washington, I had to look this up the other day because another leftist was arguing with me about it. Every single president since George Washington has instituted tariffs, both emergency and non-emergency, primarily for trade leverage. Look it up. So even though every single president has done it and nobody complained about it, the Supreme Court heard it, decided Trump didn't have the ability to institute tariffs under emergency powers. That's what they specifically said. And he stopped doing it. And you might say, but he still has tariffs. Yeah, he does. Because as I said, every single president has done it. The Supreme Court didn't say the president cannot institute tariffs. They said he can't do it the way he did it. So in that sense, he exceeded his power, but it was a power that literally everybody believed the president had. When the Supreme Court said, no, you don't have this power, he said, okay, and stopped doing it. Joe Biden, on the other hand, said, fuck you, I'm going to do it anyway when it came to student loans. Go look, he said it himself. Name one thing that the president has done that exceeds his authority, that violates the Constitution? One thing. You can join the conversation and tell me right now. You can either leave a comment in the live chat or on x.com/JBU_show. Or if you go to rumble.com and watch the show from there, rumble.com/user/justbetweenus. And in the description of the show is a link for the Discord, which is what I'm talking on right now. You can pop up right next to me and tell me one thing. And by the way, it doesn't have to be video. It can be audio only if you're worried about that. But tell me one thing that the president has done to exceed his authority or violate the Constitution. And then I might say, okay, I guess you could call for the military to disobey direct orders from the president. Maybe. We'll see what it is. But since nobody can name one thing, there's no excuse. This is treason according to our laws. And it should be treated as such. Because this just keeps getting further and further and further out of hand. And do you think they're going to get any less psychotic when Trump's not the one in power? Of course not. They're only going to get worse. When we elect somebody else, especially for the conservatives that are mad that Trump isn't doing enough right now, what do you think is going to happen when you elect somebody that is doing enough, according to you? You think these people are just going to all of a sudden not act like this? Because they're going to. They're going to get even worse. They're going to get even more insane.
Overthrow this unconstitutional, immoral, corrupt, and compromised Donald Trump regime. And to those that don't and just follow orders blindly, if you carry out Trump's unlawful orders, you will be held to account. See, after the...
You know what I think, bud? I think you should be held to account for the treason you are committing right now.
Dust falls and Trump is finally removed and his regime is taken down, there will finally be true accountability for all involved. Nuremberg 2.0 isn't just a hashtag on social media. Constitutionalists of the United States of America, not Trump's allies like Putin and Kim Jong-un and MBS of Saudi Arabia and Benjamin Netanyahu, but our true allies will have justice for the economic terror that Donald Trump has put upon.
The economic terror, you fucking clown. Shut the fuck up.
Upon the entire world. But for justice of every single innocent soul that has needlessly been taken off of this earth because of Donald Trump, including grown victims of years past at the hands of Donald Trump in the E-Files and the reign.
The E-Files. You guys are fucking insane. You're fucking insane, but that does not excuse your behavior, and it does not absolve you of the consequences of shit like this. This man should be in jail. The FBI should be at his house tomorrow, and you know I don't take things like that lightly. I say, or rather, I defend the First Amendment vehemently. But he is directly calling for the military to disobey direct orders based on nothing. Is that not treason according to our laws?
That is undoubtedly still going on today of new children. If you do not defy these orders, you will be sitting alongside those you pledge allegiance to in Nuremberg 2.0. So you have a choice to make. Follow blindly and be held to account later.
They are intending on prosecuting not just Trump, but anybody that supported him if they ever get power again. This is exactly what I'm talking about. So tell me again how big a deal this war with Iran is.
Or uphold your sworn duty, your sworn oath, to defend against enemies, foreign and...
Okay, so they should ignore Donald Trump and they should listen to you.
Domestic.
Fucking clown.
The people aren't your enemy. Those giving you orders are. Kash Patel and the loyalist Trump FBI can go ahead and make threats and say that they're going to hunt people like me. I am Antifa. Come after me.
That's funny. Why are you wearing an American flag hat? You got your incorrectly hung flag in the background that you clearly put up for the video because you don't know how to fucking hang a flag, evident by the fact that it's not hanging on the pole correctly. It clearly was just put up for the photo. You can see the fold marks in the flag. Don't fall for this shit.
You may drop me eventually, but not before I drop 10 to 15 of you first. If Trump wants to wage...
Now he's threatening FBI agents. You still support him?
war and forego diplomacy worldwide, then we, the people, need to do the same and forego diplomacy here at home. Because the rules don't apply anymore when one man is continuously...
Can he get any farther back into himself?
...above the law. And if my time comes, at least I won't have the blood of innocent children.
Why are you continuously playing video of Iranians waving Iranian flags? Not actual Iranian flags, by the way. IRGC regime flags. See no lion?
On my hands.
I know how the founders would have dealt with somebody like that. I know how the Constitution says to deal with somebody like that, since he loves to invoke it so much. Are we a nation of laws, or are we not? Again, I'm still waiting. Anybody, you can see, nobody's popped up. Well, let me check, to be fair. Nope. Still waiting on anybody. Tell me one thing Donald Trump has done to exceed the presidential authority or violate the Constitution. Let me check the comments real quick. Nope, not a single comment from a leftist or anybody. Just one thing. That's all I'm looking for. One thing that Donald Trump has done to exceed his authority or violate the Constitution. So those of you in the Fuentes crowd, in the Megyn Kelly, Tucker Carlson, Candace Owens crowd, who are currently railing against Donald Trump, please enlighten us. What exactly is the better alternative? That? You don't get everything you want. For fuck's sakes, Alex Jones, too. Look, I spent a lot of time going to bat for Alex Jones a couple years ago. Not because I agree with the man on much. On some things, but not on much. But because the way that he was treated was absolutely insane. Another reason, by the way, that you should be praising Donald Trump's existence. The man had only made $50 million in his entire life off of his career. They sued him for $1 billion. It was 900 and something million. And the judge allowed it. That was what the judge implemented as a fair price to pay because of something he said 10 years ago in 5 minutes worth of show. Because he speculated that some of the Sandy Hook parents might have been illegitimate. some way or another. Now, I don't agree with that position. But he has the right to speculate all he wants. You just heard a guy calling for treason. He'll be fine. But even Alex Jones, same thing. I want to say I can't believe it, but I can. Here's another example of how leftists have not changed at all. They want to put you and your children and anybody like you in jail if they get power again. Don't believe me? Here's Gavin Newsom's wife.
Boys, we all know, I think, are increasingly realizing that boys are moving away from sort of the more progressive boys that spend time online are moving a little bit. I'm trying not to be political.
She's trying to be careful about what she says because she knows what she's about to say is fucking wrong. She still says it anyway, though.
Here, but are moving to the right and being sort of influenced by the Andrew Tates and some of that sort of alt-right.
Hey, Andrew Tate is not right-wing. Let's just clarify that right now. He might have some right-wing political views, but he's not particularly political in general.
Socialization online that we know is very, very dangerous. My husband and I were alarmed when our kids were watching sports online, and my son knew about Andrew Tate and thought he was pretty
Your son knew about him?
cool and thought that his Republican grandfather, who's not a Trumper, but a fiscal conservative, thought that my father would like Andrew Tate. So that's scary. We're like one of the most progressive households, and our son is confused and asking all these questions. We're working on legislation
because you realize you're full
to
of
hold
shit.
Tech companies accountable and help them be a force for good in our kids and families' lives. To really provide all the best in class resources.
I can't wait until some of these liberals' kids grow up and just flat out reject. Some of them won't, but a lot of them will, or at least some of them will. You know, what their parents taught them and tell us all their dirty little secrets. Because we know there are plenty. Your son's starting to realize you're full of shit. That's what's happening. And he's turning to toxic figures, which I agreed, Andrew Tate, not the best figure for American males, period. He provides some things that liberals have tried to take away, and that's why certain people flock to him, particularly liberal men, or ones that were raised to believe they're liberal. Nonetheless, well, let me let her finish.
And support for youth so that they don't go down this rabbit hole of very, very dangerous and limiting narratives around ultimately what it means to be a girl and what it means to be a boy. We owe it to them and ourselves to kind of heal this this gift of modern technology, but curb it to be a force for good. I mean, look, the Gov and I, we have 3 more years. We're trying to institutionalize our...
The Gov and I. Not her husband. The Gov and I.
Values so that they carry on beyond our term.
Yeah. Using the power of government to stop boys from becoming right-wing. What does that mean? Well, it probably means a lot of things. We saw the Biden administration try and do it. Thankfully, they were inept at everything they did, so it didn't work out too well. But if you let these people back in power, even just the power of Congress, with Trump still in office, what do you think is going to happen? Which, by the way, Trump administration, why the hell haven't you dealt with the DEA and ATF yet? Why is the ATF still run by a rabid liberal? And if it isn't, I apologize. And by rabid liberal, I mean anti-2A liberal. And again, if it isn't, I apologize, but I have yet to see anything on it. Still waiting for anybody to tell me one way in which Trump has violated the Constitution or exceeded his authority. Still waiting on it. All right, I'm looking to see here if I have anything else that demonstrates the psychoticness of these leftists and what they are waiting to do the moment you are no longer in office. For the moment Trump is no longer in office. Let's see. All right, I don't have anything here. Let me go to the story stack. Sorry, I told you guys it was going to be on the fly tonight. There's just too many damn things. Leftists aren't even good with their fucking opinions or their insults. I mean, most of them just crack me up. Occasionally, every now and then, you get a good one that actually gives you a genuine laugh. Let's see. Ocasio-Cortez tells military chain of command to refuse illegal orders in Iran. Okay. What's an illegal order? Define it. Why do you believe that an illegal order would be given? Name one illegal order that's been given. See, they're trying to flirt the line because they know they can't say what that guy said in that video. His dumbass doesn't realize that what the seditious six, as they so called them, and Ocasio-Cortez are doing are flirting the line. There's nothing inherently wrong with saying to defy illegal orders. That is what the oath says. The order has to actually be illegal, though. Trump's never given an illegal order. Attacking Iran, not an illegal order. Putting boots on the ground wouldn't be an illegal order. Hitting infrastructure wouldn't be an illegal order. Representative Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez slammed President Donald Trump's threat that a whole civilization will die tonight if Tehran does not meet his administration's demand by Tuesday at 8 p.m. This is a threat of genocide and merits removal from office. No, it doesn't. It doesn't. Donald Trump says crazy shit all the time. And guess what? Nothing happened. All of this for nothing. As usual. Ocasio wrote that Tuesday in a post on X. The president's mental faculties are collapsing and cannot be trusted. Demonstrate. To every individual of the president's chain of command, you have a duty to refuse illegal orders. That includes carrying out this threat. How? What would be illegal about an order to continue striking Iran? The president has the authority to launch nukes if he wants to. He wouldn't, but he has the authority to. So what exactly would be illegal? And the post comes 2 days after Trump ordered Tehran to open the fucking strait, you crazy bastards, or you'll be living in hell. There's one other example I want to give here. Let me find it real fast. Here you go. Here's another example from the Los Angeles Times. Simply holding ICE agents accountable isn't enough. God dang it, sorry. Hang on. I'm having issues over here. Go away. There we go. Senate Democrats are absolutely right in doing everything they can, including holding up funding for DHS to impose limits on behavior by U.S. ICE agents. But it is not enough. There also must be congressional action to address the inhumane conditions in ICE detention centers. I'm sorry, wasn't it leftist activists that were trying to undermine ICE's attempt to purchase new and better facilities? Up to and including setting fire to potential buildings? Oh, that's right, it was. Maybe they should be held accountable for any inhumane conditions, for preventing ICE from being able to purchase new facilities needed to expand capacity and upgrade old facilities. Inhumane conditions and the lack of protections for those facing deportation. You have no protections. You are in this country illegally. You are not a citizen. You broke the law. The only protection you have is deportation. That's it. That's all it should be anyway. You actually have a hell of a lot more than that. But you shouldn't. Unfortunately, the current law is grossly inadequate, and many people will suffer as a result. You mean be sent home? Since October, 23 people have died in ICE custody, already surpassing the total for the prior fiscal year and now on pace to be the deadliest period in 2 decades. Yeah, in total numbers. But when you look at the number of people that have been deported compared to the amount of people deported previously, and you look at average age and all of these other things too, which I'm not even considering in this number, you realize that the percentage of people that have died in custody is actually lower. They're going to tout this number because it will keep going up, because people do die, whether they're in custody or not. Some people die because they don't want to be in custody, and so they swallow drugs, they do something dangerous to try and get away, whatever. That's considered an in-custody death. When you deport more people, you're going to have a total higher number of deaths. But the percentage of people that are dying in custody has actually gone down slightly. Ultimately remains about the same because it doesn't really change. Don't buy this shit. But again, they want to hold Nuremberg trials, sorry, not Nürburgring. Nuremberg trials. For Trump supporters, for ICE agents, for police officers. These people are psychotic at this point. That's your alternative. And by the way, Tucker Carlson's no different. I don't think Megyn Kelly and Nick Fuentes even is psychotic. Tucker Carlson, well, I don't think he's psychotic. I think he's a sellout. Candace Owens is psychotic. Tucker Carlson appears psychotic because I think he's sold out. And I'm going to demonstrate that here in a minute. All right, so there you have it with the ICE. I was looking for one other thing, though. High school textbook relates Trump to being as authoritarian as Hitler. Canada hate bill weaponized against people of faith. I understand that's not America, but I'm just showing you. Leftists haven't changed. They're going to try and change their spots for this election. And a lot of people who are a little disgruntled with Trump right now might be tempted. But I'm trying to demonstrate nothing has changed. Here's another example. This comes from John Garrison Marks in Time magazine. I genuinely didn't know what this was about when I clicked on it. America's 250th anniversary is repeating a familiar mistake. What would you guess that mistake is about? If you guessed slavery, you'd be correct. Over the past year, it has become increasingly clear that the federal planners for the nation's semi-quincentennial have little interest in acknowledging the central place of slavery. Because yes, 250 years. Over 150 years since we ended the practice. We can't celebrate an anniversary without bringing up every fucking bad thing that ever happened. Make no mistake. If a leftist was president for the 250th anniversary, the entire anniversary would probably be about slavery. All right. Here's the last example of how nothing has changed with Democrats. Maybe. I don't know what it is about this website. Every now and then it just stops loading. Hang on one sec. What the hell? Oh. Okay, where'd the video go? It literally says watch, but there's no video. No. Okay, apparently there's nothing to watch. Democrat House candidate in Georgia calls to ban MAGA voters from internet for 4 years once the Democrats are back in charge. Here's the, there you go. See it for yourself. Democrats, Trump is totalitarian. Democrat state congressional candidate. Yes, also take away the internet access of his supporters for 4 years so they can't say anything. Democrats, I don't see any contradiction there. That at least is the tacit message, being sent by the National Party and one of their more prominent state legislator candidates, Susanna Karatosis. She's running to be the party's nominee in House District 120, typically a Republican seat. But you never know in a midterm year with an important Democrat U.S. Senate seat to hold on to. Karatosis describes herself as a wife and mother in Georgia who wants to see Georgia thrive for all our citizens to be able to lead a life of prosperity with dignity. We're going to talk about that word dignity here in just a minute. And that requires the right. That requires the right to political expression, which she says is being stifled. That requires the right to political expression, which according to her is being stifled. The foundation of our democracy is the right to vote, and every Georgian deserves to have their voice heard and vote counted. Yeah, there is no right to vote. And it's not actually a foundation of democracy, the right to vote. Yes, voting is a foundation of democracy. There is no such thing in the United States now nor ever before as a right to vote. In order for a right to exist, it has to exist without anything. Meaning no government, no society, your right to defend yourself still exists. Your right to not be molested, not have your things searched or handcuffs placed on you or whatever, still exists without a society. There is no right to vote because you have to have a society in order to have something to vote for. You have to have a government. Right? Year after year, barriers have been put in place by Republicans who want to make it harder for citizens to participate in our elections. No, we want to make it harder for non-citizens and people who are not eligible to vote, like felons, from voting. That's all. We believe in some barriers. Yes. Guilty as charged. From restrictive voting laws to gerrymandered district maps that silence communities. I'm sorry, what state specifically gerrymandered their maps to exclude all Republican votes? Based on the allegation that that's what Texas was doing. But in reality, after Texas redid its district map, the Supreme Court decided it was the most fair and representative map that Texas had had. It ended up increasing Democrat seats. Weird. Now how serious she is about the candidacy remains up for debate, as her social media profile is limited for someone trying to flip a seat. But how serious she is about the foundation of our democracy and how America deserves to have their voices heard is clearly bovine effluence. Bullshit. As evinced by a clip going viral in which she discusses how she'd deal with punishment for MAGA voting for Trump. Punishment for how you wield your vote. Weird. I thought it was your right to vote. Oh, it's only your right to vote for a Democrat. Her solution, take away the internet for 4 years so that Democrats can, quote, rebuild. When this is all over and Trump is gone and Democrats are back in charge and we are rebuilding everything, the punishment for MAGA for voting Trump 3 times needs to be that they lose their internet access for 4 years, she said in a video which originated on Instagram earlier this year, but is going viral in this moment. I would like to play that video for you, but for whatever reason, they didn't provide it. I think it was supposed to be here, but then it just goes to a lawsuit about Instagram and not actually the video. Anyway. They cannot post videos or comments on social media for 4 straight years so that none of us are subjected to their lies, the misinformation, while we are rebuilding the chaos that they caused. The whole world and America gets to be without their BS online for 4 straight years, she says with a smile. Can we all agree to this, AI-generated founding fathers? Can we all agree to this? The founding fathers have spoken. I'm not sure why this is funny, whether it's because someone so truly evil cannot be dumb or because someone so dumb cannot be so truly evil. What is clear is that this woman is a small but cancerous growth on the American body politic, running for official office, and the Democrat Party seems to want nothing to do. Seems to want to do nothing, rather, to address this. Let me see if I can find the video real quick, and then we'll move on from this, but... Figures. When did Google become so useless, guys? Alright, why don't I have any volume? What the shit?
And we're rebuilding.
Okay, sorry, hang on. Apparently, I'm gonna have to unmute it.
This is all over, and Trump is gone, and Democrats are back in charge, and we're rebuilding everything. The punishment for MAGA for voting Trump 3 times needs to be that they lose their internet access for 4 years. That they cannot post videos or comments on social media for 4 straight years, so that none of us are subjected to their lies and misinformation while we are rebuilding the chaos that they caused. The whole world and America gets to be without their BS online for 4 straight years. Can we all agree to this?
Nothing's changed. And yet, according to Nick Fuentes, according to Tucker Carlson, according to Candace Owens, and according to Megyn Kelly, we should vote Democrat. Because Trump has been less than ideal, according to them. Now, frankly, I think he's done more than any president in my lifetime towards what I would like to see. Not all of it's perfect. Not all of it's great. But it's a hell of a lot better than George Bush, than the other idiots would have been, McCain and the other one. I think it's better than Reagan even, in a lot of ways. They would sooner vote for these insane liberals because they're not happy about this war. And I really hate to talk about the Epstein thing. I really just am so sick of it and want to move on. Don't forget, there is zero evidence to support that anybody except Jeffrey Epstein himself ever touched a child. I'm not saying nobody else did. I'm saying we have found zero evidence, definitive proof, a picture, a video, even a specific allegation that we can at least verify as much as possible, that illustrates that anyone except Jeffrey Epstein touched a child. We do have a little bit of evidence that suggests that some other people frequently met with call girls around or because of Jeffrey Epstein. Those are not allegations of underage. Oh, there is a little bit of evidence regarding, Prince Andrew, too. I apologize. So, 2 people. Now, I still don't know if that involves any underage girls or not. I'm not exactly sure what the evidence regarding him is. I just know that, the Crown threw him under the bus. But it's not fun to sit here and defend the world's most hated pedophile. And I'm not defending Jeffrey Epstein or anybody that was friends with him by any means. But we have to have definitive proof especially before we start calling it the Epstein fucking government. Let alone the Epstein Israeli government. Where the fuck does that even come from? When can we return to sanity on either side? When can we return to working with facts? Yes, Bondi absolutely fucked up. Kash Patel absolutely fucked up. Trump took too long to fire Bondi and still hasn't fired Patel, though I wish he would. Dan Bongino fucked up. I'd love to talk to him about it. Maybe one day. But that is a far cry from suggesting they are covering up some massive government pedophile ring. We don't have definitive proof of any of it. Trump has released more than anybody. And y'all didn't care this much when the presidents were denying the shit even existed. Now all of a sudden you care. They claim, and no, I can't prove it's true, but they claim the only things that haven't been released are because they are inappropriate and will not be released. Child pornography, essentially. Is that true? I don't know. I do know that you cannot just claim that Trump is covering up for a pedophile government without some definitive fucking proof. Especially since he's the one fucking guy that's at least released what he could. Or something. Anything. And again, it's really fucking ignorant to think that Obama's FBI ever gathered damning evidence on themselves anyway. If there was damning evidence, they spent the time destroying it, not cataloging it. That should be fucking obvious to you morons. Let's talk about Iran. Because honestly, the further we go with this, the more I'm on board, and I'm kind of upset right now that we're in any sort of negotiations. Though I have faith that Trump's not going to accept anything other than full, what's the word? Contritions? Full whatever. Iran fully giving up. That needs to happen. Word is that the Iranian people that oppose the regime want us to continue, and they're not happy that we paused right now. I don't know if that's true or not. That's what the word is. Now look. Let's see here. There's so many different angles to cover on this. Let's start with because this might be happening soon. Let's start with the claim that hitting civilian infrastructure is a war crime. It's obviously not true. It's pretty easily debunked. Democrats will do it for me right here.
If Iran were to launch a nuclear attack on Israel, what would our response be? And I want the Iranians to know that if I'm the president, we will attack Iran. Whatever stage of development they might be in their nuclear weapons program in the next 10 years, during which they might foolishly consider launching an attack on Israel, we would be able to totally obliterate them.
We cannot allow Iran to get a nuclear weapon.
The two biggest threats to Israel, the two most existential threats, if you will, are one, a nuclear Iran, and two, rockets raining in from Lebanon launched by Hezbollah.
The regime has long sponsored terrorism and threatened our interests. They should be held accountable for their actions.
Iran has American blood on their hands.
That was Democrats Hillary Clinton, Barack Obama, Chuck Schumer, Joe Biden, Kamala Harris saying we must stop Iran's terror regime, that it simply cannot get a nuclear bomb. It will wipe out the U.S. and civilization in the Western world and more. Hillary Clinton even said she would attack Iran if she was president. But Democrats today now attack Trump for doing what they said must be done. And also this, Vice President J.D. Vance said in Hungary today, the war will end very shortly. Joining us now, U.S. Navy SEAL veteran, Wisconsin Congressman Derek Van Orden. Congressman, thanks again for joining us, and thank you again for your service to America. You know, we know Democrats are going to politicize this. What do you expect will happen in 3 hours tonight? We know Iran lies and delays purposely to keep its leverage, its enriched uranium, and open up, you know, keeping the Strait of Hormuz. That's their only aces in the hole. Can the president succeed at getting Iran to deliver and give up its enriched uranium and opening the Hormuz Strait? What do you think?
I think it's going to be a very difficult challenge, and the reason being is that the Iranian radical Muslim mullahs are part of a death cult. And they really, truly don't care about their own people. You've seen that. They've slaughtered over 30,000 of these protesters. And I think they'll continue to do so. So it's going to be an uphill slog. Let me clear up this war crime thing. Listen, unless they are launching the missiles from the factories that they're producing them, they're going into a truck or a train and they're being transported over bridges to attack the region and the United States eventually. So these are absolutely legitimate military targets. It is dual use infrastructure. So when some of my colleagues, my Democrat colleagues, are saying that these are potential war crimes, it's really, really dangerous rhetoric, and it's not the case. I don't recall any of them saying anything when Bill Clinton bombed Serbia's electrical production capacity. They didn't say anything. They're saying this solely to try to stick their thumb in Donald Trump's nose in a time of armed conflict, and it's embarrassing and dangerous.
So, did we forget that Barack Obama intentionally and knowingly bombed a U.S. citizen? Infrastructure are legitimate wartime targets. And this is exactly the problem, and the fact that any conservative is crying about this, or any Republican or claiming to be conservative. I don't think there's really that many conservatives, but any claiming to be conservative or Republican that is crying about this. What you are asking for is for Trump to do what we've done for the last 50 years. Even though what we've done for the last 50 years hasn't worked, because that's not how war works. War is the final option. The only thing to achieve in war is total defeat. Anything short of that has never worked for us. Or anybody else for that matter. And let me be clear. The Nazis, we defeated. Japan, we defeated. The Ottomans were defeated. Not by us, but just as an example. Vietnam, it wasn't a loss, but it wasn't a defeat. Obviously, Afghanistan, Iraq, not defeats. We tried to half-ass it. We tried to be a police force instead of a military. We tried to leave civilian infrastructure alone and only hit terrorist targets. The problem is these terrorists, and we call them terrorists for a reason because they do not operate by the same rules as the rest of the world, hide amongst the civilians. And no, I'm not saying that means we go and attack civilians. We still should avoid civilians. But infrastructure is a legitimate target. We're out of military targets. They're still refusing to give up. What do you expect us to do? Just go, oh, well, we tried, and let them rebuild until they're strong enough to attack us again? How fucking stupid would that be of us? You either eliminate the enemy, or you eliminate their will to fight, or both. Well, if you eliminate them, you eliminate their will to fight. But you don't just hit their military targets and then go, oh, well, I guess that's all we can do. Stopping now is about the dumbest option. And look, I've said it before, right? I don't love that we're doing this right now. I do believe that there might have been some things that were more important foreign affairs-wise, because as much as I'm an isolationist, I recognize that we cannot just immediately isolate from the world after leading it for so long. After dominating all these things for so long. We cannot just completely isolate and just let everything else go to hell. So while I think that there were some things that maybe could have been put ahead of this, I also recognize that this had to be taken care of. I also recognize that Trump has never once changed his tune on this. In fact, I have a video from 1987 of Donald Trump.
Because I'm personally tired of seeing this great country of ours being ripped off.
But as far as Trump is concerned, our allies are only part of the problem. The real culprit is Iran.
Why couldn't we go in and take over some of their oil, which is along the sea?
How would you do that? Would you send in the Marines? Would you take a chance in a war?
Let them have Iran. You take their oil. That's what
How?
How?
I mean, do we want a war? What do you mean we take their oil?
You go in. You're
How
gonna have
do
a
we
war,
go
Barbara.
in?
You're going to have a war by being weak.
Okay, how do we go in? What do we do?
Excuse me.
Yeah.
You're going to have a war, and it's going to start in the Middle East.
What if the Soviet Union said, you do this to Iran, we're going to come in?
I don't believe they'd do it. The next time Iran attacks this country, go in and grab one of their big oil installations, and I mean grab it and keep
what
it,
he said.
and get
The
back your
next time.
losses, because this country has lost plenty because of Iran.
His opinion hasn't changed, at least since 1987. So anybody acting like they don't understand where this is coming from, or this is not Donald Trump putting America first, was only hearing what they wanted to hear. Donald Trump, by far, believes this is putting America first. Now, you can disagree with that, and I kind of disagreed with it to begin with. But I don't anymore, because I recognize what we've already gained from this. I recognize what the bigger game is here. And it's not Iran. Iran is only a tiny piece of this. Venezuela, only a tiny piece of this. Donald Trump has put us in a position to control the world's oil supply for decades. And no matter how much lefties might not like it, the world still runs on oil. And it will be a century before that's not the case. Because energy is only a small slice of that pie. Oil is in everything. It's what allows me to talk to you right now through this microphone, through this wire, through this computer, through this Ethernet cable, through my router, through the ISP to you. And then all that shit in reverse. It is what allows modern medicine. It's why hospitals in 1900 contained some sharp metal instruments, maybe a light, and a doctor, and a bench. And that's it. And now you have MRI machines, X-ray machines, ultrasound, all the other equipment, all because of oil. All made possible because of oil. Obviously, oil is not 100% of what makes these things up, but it's all made possible by oil. Almost all of the medicines, oil derived. Virtually all of them, oil derived. Only made possible by how cheap oil derivatives are. All of these things only made possible by the fact that we use oil as our primary energy source. Why? Well, because they are derivatives of oil. And so, for every gallon of oil that we pull out of the ground, we use about 60% of it for energy. Diesel, gasoline, actually no, we use about 80%. Diesel, gasoline, bunker oil, jet fuel, all come 80% of that gallon. The other 20% or so is useless as far as energy creation. Maybe not useless, but it's more valuable for other things. It creates a whole host of derivatives that lead to all these other products. Medicine, medical equipment, plastics, all the things, right? Look up what you get out of a barrel of oil. because we are using that 80% or 70% or whatever it is, these are obviously rough estimates, for energy, that 20% is basically extra, right? It's free in a sense. Obviously, there's a cost in extracting it, and that's what leads to that cost. If we were only using the 20%, we wanted to get rid of using oil for energy, and we only want to use the 20% to keep the medical, the plastics, all of that. Well, now, for every gallon of oil we take out of the ground, which is not easy to do, we're only actually able to use 20%, and 80% is waste. I mean, I'm sure we'd put it towards something, but it wouldn't be the primary energy driver, and therefore that 20% would be extremely costly. Now, that maybe wasn't the best description, but hopefully that makes sense. Because we are targeting the bulk portion, and that 20% is extra, all of these byproducts are cheap. But if we were only targeting that 20% and the bulk was the byproduct, the cost would increase dramatically, exponentially, to the point it's unviable, to the point only the ultra wealthy would have access to modern medicine, electronics, everything that is advanced in modern society. AC. Where do you think refrigerants come from? And this is what these environmentalists, now the people at the top understood this. They know what they're doing. Why? I don't know. Like what their underlying motivation is still, I don't know. I think it's transfer of control. I think they were going for a different method. Instead of a direct method, they were going for an indirect method. But the environmentalists that supported it don't seem to understand that you are essentially asking people to move back to the Stone Age, well, 1900, it would be about the turn of the 20th century, would be the advanced technology that we could have, the most advanced technology we could have, sustainably. It's not that these other things would just cease to exist, it's that they would become so expensive as to be inviable to the vast majority of people. It'd become unaffordable to the vast majority of people, and the cost benefit would be non-viable. Anyway, not only are we set up to control the global energy supply, but we've taken control from Russia and China. Now, Russia independently has enough oil. However, they've been relying on Europe for money. Because while Russia can pull its own oil out of the ground and it can use it for itself, that's not enough to supply its war machine too. It needs outside revenue. It's been getting that from Europe. It's rather ironic, really, that Ukraine's been fighting a war that is entirely funded by Europe, that has been begging us to fund Ukraine to fight the war that is being funded by our fucking allies. Crazy how that works. You know who finally put a stop to it? Donald Trump. Europe is now going to have to buy their oil from us because it's unsustainable. They can't afford it. They need the oil from us or they need it from Iran. That means, that's why they've all reversed their opinions, by the way, that they're not going to help with the Strait of Hormuz. They're all sending ships now. And they're all sending ships because they know they need it. They don't want to have to be 100% dependent on us. And that's fine. They don't have to be. But they shouldn't be dependent on fucking Russia. Yes, in the short term, this has helped Russia. because Russia has some excess oil to sell. In the long term, though, this completely destroys Russia. The game here is far bigger than Iran or Venezuela themselves. On top of that, we've also proven to all of the BRICS nations that didn't want to align with us that Russia and China are incompetent partners and they will not protect even their most strategic assets. Most likely because they can't. They probably would have if they could. Certainly Venezuela. But they can't. And so they won't and haven't. And now India knows it. Brazil knows it. North Korea knows it. All the rest of them know it. We tried negotiating with North Korea, but they just kept stalling the negotiations. Very similar to the way that Iran was doing it. And what happened? They stalled until they finally got their nuclear weapon. And there you go. End of negotiations. Now, it's fine that North Korea exists. We don't care that North Korea exists and doesn't want a part of the United States or the Western world at all. That's fine. Contrary to America haters' beliefs, we don't actually care. What we do care about is the fact we don't fucking trust a single dictator. What we do care about is protecting our ally, South Korea, who North Korea has repeatedly threatened. Just like we care about protecting Taiwan, who China repeatedly threatens. Iran was following North Korea's playbook. They were feigning negotiation, even agreeing to certain terms. Terms that, by the way, didn't give us any protections whatsoever to prevent them from obtaining a nuclear weapon. Hence why they obtained one, or were advancing towards one. Hence why they had uranium that was higher than the 5% or whatever. They were stalling until they made their breakthrough. Once they made the breakthrough, they no longer have to stall, and they no longer have to negotiate. And they could threaten the Strait of Hormuz anytime they want to, let alone Europe, Israel. The thing is, what the congressman just said a minute ago is correct. Iran is run by a death cult. A cult that goes back hundreds of years in history and has been attacking Westerners, Europeans, Americans, South Americans, for hundreds of years unprovoked because it is their religious belief, because it is what Muhammad ordered. Literally since the day Muhammad died, or at least the year he died. I think it's 565 or 535 or whatever. If they got their hands on a nuclear weapon and could reach Israel with it, even though they know Israel has a nuclear weapon, or likely does, and would destroy Iran in return because they have several, they don't care. They will fire it immediately. They believe in their cause to the point of death. That's why they have suicide bombers. Sitting around and waiting for them to get strong enough to hit Europe or hit American mainland or develop a nuclear weapon, God forbid, and do those things would have meant war anyway. They've been chanting death to America since America began. Literally, since 1776. Why would we sit around and wait? No. I don't think this was the right time to do it. I would have preferred to wait a little bit longer or have done it sooner. Probably would have made more sense while we were already engaged in the region, frankly. Regardless, the reason Donald Trump acted now, let's not forget, is because the Iranian regime was murdering their civilians. Because their civilians were trying to overthrow their government. It was a strategically apt time. We don't get to choose that. It just made sense. Because the people were already at their limit and ready to overthrow their government, but didn't have the capability. Iran was slaughtering innocent civilians. Trump made a threat that he had to back up, or he was just as useless as Obama, drawing red lines that they just repeatedly cross. And if you don't want to see us engaged in a forever war, then not only do we have to go in 100% over the course of 90 days, again, that's how long Trump has till he has to go to Congress. That's how long I give him to deal with this, ideally. We have to hit infrastructure. We have to eliminate the IRGC's will to fight. We have to eliminate any belief that they have that they can just ride this out. It has to be total capitulation or nothing. And so while I'm a little upset that Donald Trump's even bothering to negotiate right now, I wish he would have just followed through on his threat. I think he knows he has to achieve total capitulation. In his negotiations, they've worked out pretty well so far, so I'm not too worried about it. Unfortunately, I don't think this is over. Unfortunately, I do think we're going to have to hit them harder. They're a death cult. That's what they believe in. And unfortunately, they're going to try and use civilians as shields. And unlike any other military on the planet, the U.S. will continue to do everything in its power to protect innocent civilians from being hit. But the fact is, war is war. And we cannot avoid any civilian casualty ever. It's a fucking luxury that that the world even expects us to try to do that. Because no one else does, because no one else is capable of that. The U.S. goes out of its way to the point we have created smart guided bombs that can land on a moving car from 2,000 miles, fired 2,000 miles offshore on a boat or a submarine, land on a moving target with no explosive payload. It is literally just concrete and guidance equipment, and kill the occupants of the car without any damage to surrounding civilians. Nobody else has a bomb like that because nobody else bothers to create something like that, because nobody else goes to the fucking lengths that we do to protect life, innocent life. Nobody else does a tenth of what the United States does to help the world, to help the people that not just are our allies, but just aren't our enemies. The ones that don't chant death to America in their fucking governments. Nick DiPaolo said it really well the other day. Hilarious guy. He said, "We've been spoiled for so long. We get upset if there's the tiniest bit of collateral damage when we drop bombs." And he's right. And I'm not saying we shouldn't be upset. I mean, that's what makes us American. But we also need to be realistic and recognize that our military is doing everything in its power to avoid unnecessary civilian casualties. But we cannot stop waging war until we've achieved the mission. The mission is complete capitulation by the Islamic government. And Americans should be furious right now at our media for running IRGC propaganda and anti-American propaganda, acting like our troops are out committing war crimes and everything else that they've claimed over the last month and a half. It's fucking disgusting. And frankly, should be investigated. At least if you ask me. Let me give you an example. Give me just a second here to find it. Let's see. By the way, shout out to Singapore for refusing to capitulate to Iran, like our fucking supposed allies have been doing. Fuck France and Spain. And the rest of Europe too. Fuck you guys. You're weak and you're pathetic. Canada too. But shout out to Singapore. Sorry, I'm looking for this. Like I said, I've got so many damn reports for today. Good Lord. There's so many. I cannot believe how much there is here. Russia and China, by the way, voted in the UN, or actually vetoed in the UN, blocking the, the reopening of the Strait of Hormuz. Of course they did. I think Charles Herbert said it well. Terrorists like Russia, China, and Iran do tend to support one another, no matter what the danger is to the rest of the world. No country, and this is what Singapore said, by the way, and I agree with, no country has the right to block passageways, natural passageways. Now, we have the right to block, say, the Panama Canal, because we fucking created it. We don't have the right to block the Pacific Ocean. And you might say, well, what about our blockade on Cuba? Well, that's a war tactic. Different story. And what Iran's doing is a war tactic, but they'll pay a high price for it. What they don't have the right to do is block it and charge fucking rent to go through there. If they did, China's going to do the same thing. Japan could do the same thing. North or South Korea, same thing. Anywhere that there is some sort of waterway that needs to be passed through, the closest country will just claim rights to charge ships whatever they want. That's what you're supporting by not supporting this war, by the way. Sorry, I'm looking for this story. I know I have it. I just don't know where it is. Is it this one? I have this, yeah, it's this one. Okay. So I'm talking about how the media has been basically working for the enemy. A 12-hour drive through Iran, this comes from the Associated Press, offers glimpses of the destruction, defiance, and daily life. The sympathy post for Iran. A black banner hangs over a border crossing, and portraits of Iran's slain supreme leader Ayatollah Khomeini stare down, promising vengeance against the United States and Israel. What kind of respectable American writes that sentence? But on a 12-hour drive south to the capital, Tehran, daily life continued. No shit. Daily life continued in Germany while we were bombing Berlin. With only occasional signs of the ongoing war, including a Shiite religious center that officials say was damaged by a recent airstrike. Including a Shiite religious center. Listen to how they frame it. Okay, they're going to talk more about it throughout this story. Listen to how it's framed. And then I'll prove to you that it was more than just a religious center. But on a 12-hour drive, I already read that Associated Press reporters made the journey on Saturday after crossing into Iran from Turkey. They gained a glimpse of the country at the center of a regional war that has jolted the world economy and shows no sign of ending 5 weeks after Khomeini was killed in the opening U.S. and Israeli salvo. The Associated Press has been granted permission by the Iranian government to send an additional team into the country for a brief reporting trip. AP already operates in Iran. The visiting team must be accompanied by a media assistant from government-affiliated company. AP retains full editorial control of its content. Yeah, I'm sure. I'm sure they don't mind anyway because you've been writing pro-Iran content this whole war. So I'm sure that they didn't have much to critique as it is. But if you had a media consultant, that means they only took you to the places they wanted you to go. There's a photo of somebody cleaning debris off his roof. And here is a religious center damaged by an airstrike. We'll come back to this in a second. The first major sign of the war's destruction came in the northwestern city of Zanjan, about 6 hours' drive from the border. Iranian officials say an airstrike hit a religious community center known as a Husniya, killing 2 people and destroying a clinic and a library. What kind of clinic? That would have been my first question. What kind of clinic? Just a clinic? Oh, okay. Other parts of the compound, some of which is centuries old, suffered damage, including its golden dome. Oh no. When asked about the strike, the Israeli military said it had, quote, hit a military headquarters and that it tries to avoid harming civilian facilities without elaborating, implying that they're lying. It has hurt me and distressed me a lot, said Somaya Shoje, a local resident who has attended religious and cultural events at the center. With these airstrikes, the U.S. and Israel are showing their malicious intent to the whole world, she says. You're airing Iranian propaganda. The strike killed the library's caretaker and a volunteer with the Iranian Red Crescent first responders, according to Jafar Mohammadi, the provincial director of cultural and Islamic guidance. Keep in mind, 80% of Iran, not Islamic. He said poor people had received free treatment at the clinic. I'm sure they did. And students had made use of the library that housed more than 35,000 books, including antique manuscripts. Huh, guess you shouldn't have been a fucking terrorist-supporting nation. He said he did not know why the complex was targeted. Really? Because I'm going to show you why, because just from the photo, we can already see why. Iran wanted to negotiate for peace with U.S. President Donald Trump, but Trump responded with war Yeah, because they were bullshitting. They were using the North Korean tactic. Feigning peace to avoid the U.S. going to war because they didn't think we had the balls to do it in order to buy time. Mohammadi said, he started the war, but we will definitely be the victorious side. Be prepared to be disappointed, bud. Life goes on in much of Iran despite fear and uncertainty. The U.S. and Israel have carried out thousands of strikes across the country, and Trump has threatened to bomb Iran, quote, back to the Stone Age where they belong. Over the weekend, he reiterated a Monday deadline for Iran to reopen the Strait of Hormuz, a vital waterway for oil and gas. Like we don't all fucking know that at this point. Iran's surviving leaders have remained defiant and in control, rejecting what they say are unreasonable U.S. peace proposals. Israel has yeah, that's the thing about losing a fucking war. You don't get to choose. Israel has given no indication it plans to let up on strikes and has called on Iranians to overthrow their leaders. Even as the war generates global turmoil, fear and anxiety within Iran, daily life goes on. Again, trying to show that Iran's being resilient, as if they have any choice but for life to go on. Dude, they're just going to sit around and die? This is propaganda by an American media company for our enemy. What's the definition of treason again? I forget. In city after city on the road to Tehran, AP reporters saw normal traffic, businesses open, and people walking the streets. Yeah, because they know America is benevolent. They know we will not strike innocent civilians intentionally. Believe me, if Iran was bombing America, civilians would not just be walking around like normal. Now, we'd still get on with life because that's what we do, but we'd be a lot more careful about it. We'd probably be digging tunnels to avoid walking on surface streets. A restaurant served Iranian delicacies like grilled lamb and rice, barley soup, and saffron drinks as REMs. Losing My Religion played on loudspeakers. Oh, sorry. As REM's Losing My Religion played on loudspeakers. Many women... kind of funny how American culture... America has no culture, right? But it's kind of funny how our culture permeates even an enemy during a time of war against us. Many women could be seen going about their day without wearing the theocracy's mandatory head coverings, the enforcement of which has eased in recent years. No, it's eased since the beginning of the war so that propaganda reporters like the AP can say, look how great Iran's become. The team passed through 2 checkpoints on the approach to Tehran without being stopped. Yeah, because you had an Iranian fucking diplomat with you. The city was eerily quiet after midnight. There had been heavy airstrikes on the mountains overlooking the capital the previous night. Tehran is on the front lines, having seen wave after wave of strikes that the U.S. and Israel say are aimed at military and internal security forces. That's how they frame that. That America and Israel say they're aiming at military and internal security forces. Authorities in Iran say over 1,900 people have been killed, and it's unclear how many were soldiers or civilians. So 100% of them could have been soldiers. The AP reporters saw several government buildings and police stations that had been destroyed. Yeah, because they were used by the Besiege or the IRCG. They passed a number of checkpoints operated by plainclothes Besiege, an internal security force, and uniformed members of the paramilitary Revolutionary Guard. They were stopped once and asked to open the car and show press cards before being waved onward. Fuel is heavily subsidized, such that a gallon of gasoline costs around 15 US cents, but people are only allowed to purchase 5 gallons at a time. There was no signs of gas lines. Yeah, because most people can't afford to fucking drive. And I wonder, matter of fact, let's look. I might be wrong, but I'm just curious. You must obtain proper registration to have subsidized fuel. How much you want to bet that subsidy only goes to loyalists? They also have a monthly quota. No more than 60 liters. So that would be what? Like 10 gallons of gas. You get 10 gallons of gas a month. Subsidized anyway. Limited to 1 vehicle per household. Exclusions apply to things like imported cars, free zone plates, certain new high-value vehicles, and government fleets. All right. And you gotta be fucking kidding me. You know, Elon, what is the point of paying for extra X and Grok use if Grok never fucking works and always tells me I've hit my limit, even if I've only asked it a single question? But then I can go over here to X and ask over here, and I bet you it won't be a problem. Pain in the ass. Let's see. There's only 36 million total registered vehicles in Iran, but that includes government-owned vehicles. Some sources cite 16 million registered vehicles. Somewhere between 11 and 16 million passenger cars as of 2020. Which means less than 35% have a car. Iran's total population is 90 to 92 million. That's 35% of households, by the way, not Iranians. So there you go. So really, it doesn't apply to very many people at all, but nonetheless, let's go back to the point. The AP reporter saw several government buildings, police stations that had been destroyed. Fuel is heavily subsidized. There were no signs of gas lines. Back in Zanj, Mohammed Massoumi, a retired soldier, said the conflict with the U.S., the world's arrogance, goes back to a 1953 Baku that is seared in the minds of many Iranians. He expressed hope that Iran's leaders would defend the country. The enemy sees that we are not succumbing, he said. Of course he wants to go back to the 1953, because if we go back before that, we know that Iran has, and the radical Islamists, it's not just Iran, but it's the radical Islamists in the region, started all this, all the way back to 535. They've been attacking Americans unprovoked since literally the day we formed as a country. Now, here's the video that the AP provided with this, which includes the bombed out clinic, library, and community center. And I'll show you how we can instantly recognize why it was bombed. Should be pretty easy to spot. So you can see here, this damage means it was not directly targeted. You might not know how this stuff works, but this is definitely from like shrapnel from the building next to it being hit. They didn't target the mosque itself. I'm assuming this is a mosque. This is the building that was targeted, which is directly next door. Now, you'll notice that there's some flags here, 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 and when we get closer, we'll see even more. Here and here. Here and here. And of course, any evidence that this was being used for something else. Where are all the books, by the way? You see any books anywhere? I didn't see a single book laying around. You would think if there were 35,000 books in this building, there would be a book somewhere. Even if they tried to recover everything useful, you'd see some burned out books somewhere. Of course, anything that would prove this wasn't being used as a library would be missing. They would have cleaned that out ahead of time. There's a page. There's a piece of paper. Still no book. Okay, and then this building, whatever this is, with Khomeini's face. Yeah. People walking. What a useful report by the AP, huh? All right. So, I apologize, guys. There you go. I'll just show you real quick. So here's the mosque. I don't know when I took that off screen, but here's the building. Oh, back just a little bit. Here's the building with the flags. There. There was another one just a second ago right here. I don't know where it went. But you can see, we'll zoom in closer here in a second. You'll see a few more. Still no books. 2 more flags. 2 more flags. Still no books anywhere, or anything that demonstrates this would have been a clinic or a library. Paper. And there you go. There's the other building. Okay. So, how do I know that that was most likely a location being used by terrorists, and why the location was targeted? Well, those flags look familiar, and so I asked Grok about them. I took 2 screenshots of the flag, which you can see right here, just so you can see I'm not lying. Okay, I took screenshots of the flags, and I asked Grok, can you translate what's on these flags and tell me what they represent? He said the main text on the flag is Shahada, Islamic Declaration of Faith. English translation, there is no God but Allah, and Muhammad is the messenger of Allah. This is the core Islamic creed, the first of the 5 pillars of Islam, and appears in large white Arabic calligraphy. typically stylized in TWTCH script, across the upper central part of the black flag. The lower white text and any circular reddish emblem below are secondary design elements commonly added by specific groups. More on that below. What the flag represents. This is the classic jihadist flag, also called the Black Standard, the Black Banner, or the Black Shahada flag. It is not the national flag of any country. It is not used by mainstream Muslim nations or communities. Instead, it is a symbolic banner widely adopted in the late 1990s by Islamic militant and extremist groups as a symbol of jihad, and the goal of establishing an Islamic caliphate and governance under strict Sharia law. The black background with white shahada traces back to an early Islamic history. The Prophet Muhammad reportedly used black banners in battle, and the Abbasid Caliphate adopted black as its dynastic color. Modern groups deliberately revived this to claim legitimacy as successors to early Muslim community. I wonder if Antifa uses a black flag for similar reasons. They do seem to be so willing to support the jihadist movement. Hamas, Hezbollah, Iran. Modern use. It is the generic battle flag of the jihadist movement. Groups that fly it, or very similar versions, include Al-Qaeda, Al-Shabaab, Boko Haram, Palestinian Islamic Jihad, Ansar-Dine, and many others. It signals ideological alignment with global jihad, not a single organization. Specific group variants. The plain black and white, we don't care about that. Important context, this flag is not inherently the flag of Islam. Peaceful Muslims and most Muslim-majority countries would never use it. National flags, such as Saudi Arabia's green flag or Afghan's white Taliban flag with black shahada, are distinct. In many Western countries, public display of this exact flag, especially the ISIS variant, can be restricted or treated as a hate symbol terrorism indicator because of its direct association with designated terrorist organizations. It is deliberately simple and reusable so any jihadist faction can adopt it without needing official approval. In short, the flag says the Islamic declaration of faith and represents militant jihadist ideology and the dream of a caliphate. And I said, so a building with these flags surrounding it would likely belong to an extremist group and might be used for extremist purposes. Is that correct? Grok said yes. In the vast majority of documented cases, a building surrounded by these flags, especially multiple ones, is a very strong indicator that it is controlled by or strongly associated with a jihadist, extremist, and or militant group. Why this is a reliable signal? These flags are not neutral religious symbols. While the Shahada itself is a core Islamic creed used by hundreds of millions of peaceful Muslims, the specific black background with large white Arabic calligraphy has been deliberately adopted since the 1990s as the standard battle banner of, say that 5 times fast, of global jihadist movements. Groups that prominently fly it include Al-Qaeda, ISIS, ISIL, and its affiliate Al-Shabaab, Boko Haram, Palestinian Islamic Jihad, and various others. It explicitly signals commitment to armed jihad and the goal of establishing strict Sharia-based Islamic governance, a caliphate. When these flags are raised over a building, especially in clusters or surrounding a structure, it is classic propaganda and territorial marking. ISIS raising their flag over captured government buildings, police stations, or military compounds in Iraq and Syria. Jihadist groups in conflict zones like Syria, Yemen, Somalia, parts of Africa, or Iran using them to declare control over towns, checkpoints, training camps, or headquarters. Even in non-war settings, such as a provocative flag flown at the entrance of London's housing estate, it is widely interpreted as a violent jihadist statement. While the building is likely used for In active conflict zones or areas with known militant presence, such building is typically a command post, headquarters, or administrative center, a recruitment, training, or propaganda site, or a storage or logistics hub for weapons, supplies, and operations. Sometimes makeshift court, prison, or media production facilities. It's funny. The AP article didn't mention any of that. Why? Why didn't the AP article mention it at all? Because they wanted you to feel sad. They wanted you to feel defeated. It was pro-Iranian propaganda by the American Associated Press. Weird. So where do we go from here? Well, we don't have much choice. We go until we get complete capitulation. Most likely, that means we're going to have to target at least some infrastructure. Hopefully, what I would hope is that Donald Trump and the U.S. military take it a step at a time, so as not to inflict more damage than is necessary. I hope that we viciously seize Crag Island, because that will undermine the vast majority of income for the IRGC and the rest of the Islamic control. And I hope that we hit infrastructure that is starting, obviously, where it affects the jihadists the most. But I hope that we take it slowly and don't hit anything more than is necessary. We let them have a taste and give them the opportunity, because that's what we do as Americans. Now, we have given them all the opportunities already. So, if we decide to just take Crag Island and hit it all, it's hard for me to cry about it. Iranians, I know it's a death sentence in some ways, but there are 100 million of you. There are far more of you than there are Islamic loyalists. Take your country. And then we don't have to do this. You have an obligation to stand up and fight. Believe me, if the shoes were on the other foot, Americans would have been fighting since day one. We've done it before. We fought our own brothers for what we believed in. You can do the same if you want your own freedom. I don't say that lightly. It's going to mean a lot of deaths, but they're hunting you down and killing you anyway. What do you have to lose? You have a lot to gain. What do you have to lose? We want a peaceful and successful Iran. What we don't want is an Islamic terrorist regime that is constantly threatening its neighbors and its enemies. That simple. Let me know what you guys think. You can send me an email directly, JBU@USA.com. Still waiting, by the way, for anybody to give me just one way in which Donald Trump has violated the Constitution or exceeded his presidential authority. Still have yet to have a single person tell me how. Which, by the way, if you wanted to do, you can go to Rumble. You can follow the link. If you go to x.com/JBU_show, follow the link to the Rumble. The Discord link is there. You can join audio or video, and you can talk to me directly, or you can send me an email, JBU@USA.com, or just leave a comment on the show, and I will see that as well. Anyway, we do have one, maybe two more stories to get to here real quick. Holy hell, how long have we been on? Been on for a while now. The man, DeCarlos Brown Jr., the man who stabbed Irina Zarutska, has unfortunately been declared incompetent to stand trial. So Irina Zarutska will never see justice. Frankly, when you commit a heinous murder like this, now I believe in having, incompetence to stand trial in certain cases. But I think when it comes to murder, I frankly don't give a shit whether you were entirely out of your mind. If you heinously murdered somebody for no reason, if it is a capital death punishment, understand we don't have the death penalty in most places anymore, but the most still have capital crimes because they are so egregiously heinous like this, you shouldn't be able to claim incompetency. You should just go. You should be proven that you committed the crime by a jury of your peers. I still believe in the legal system, absolutely. But as soon as it is proven that you have committed the crime via a jury of your peers, you should just go straight to the chair. Because we should not waste another second. Society should not waste another second with you around. That's how I feel about it. I feel the same about child molesters. If you've been proven in a court of law with the jury of your peers to have sexually assaulted a child, now notice what I said there, a child, straight to the chamber. You can tell me what you think. Again, JBU@USA.com, comment in the show. X.com/JBU_show. I just, I think it's really disappointing that this has happened, and I think it's more proof of how a leftist court is still protecting bad guys from the consequences of their actions. This is what you get more of if you listen to the Tucker Carlsons and the, even the Megyn Kellys, and the Nick Fuenteses. You will get more of this. Is that what you want? Because if it is, you're not on my side, whatever that means. Interesting. Sorry, I'm just checking for any breaking news here. We are still deploying Marines to the region, by the way, in Iran, proving that we're not backing down, and I don't think we'll take anything but full capitulation. Okay, according to the DOJ, in a recent update on this, DeCarlos Brown is in federal custody on a federal indictment. State proceedings have found him incompetent, but they hold no weight on the federal. So, while the state refuses to hold him competent, most likely because it's a pathetic liberal judge, sounds like we might still seek justice or see justice via the federal courts. So we will find out. Hard to say, and we don't know yet, but hopefully that is the case. All right. let me check here again. Oh, I guess it's worth mentioning. We can tie this up too, so I don't have to drag it out till tomorrow. We got 10 minutes left here. Tucker Carlson, I think, has finally alienated the few people that were kind of branching off to agree with him from MAGA. And even Nick Fuentes now has lost Tucker. Tucker's just lost the plot. I think it's very clear. I think Tucker is bitter at this country. I think Tucker was bitter that he was spied on. And he had a right to be bitter for that. By the CIA under Biden. And apparently, or allegedly, by Trump, although there's less proof of that. Well, he didn't offer any proof, actually. But he showed proof when Biden did it. I don't believe he showed any proof when he alleged Trump did it. But I think it's clear that he decided to sell out to Middle East nations, probably Qatar. I think that most likely he decided that he's pissed at America, and why not take the money? Everybody else cashing in on Qatar and Middle East Islamic regimes that are, you know, funneling money into golf and everything else. Why not Tucker cash in his check? And I think that's pretty clear. He claims to be a Christian. He claims to be pro-American, yet every time he opens his mouth, he says something anti-American and often anti-Christian. Here's an example. Now look, obviously AI added the Islamic wardrobe, but this is a real quote.
But it's not just mockery of Islam. And no president should mock Islam. That's not your job.
He's talking about Trump's tweet threatening Iran if they didn't come to the table the other night. And he said, praise be to Allah at the end.
This is not a theocracy. We don't go to war with other theocracies to find out which theocracy is more effective.
Oh. You had so much hope when you left Fox, Tucker. Now, you're just a radical leftist as far as I'm concerned. I don't believe you, I don't care. And even Nick Fuentes jumped off, which I think is kind of funny, because now the fragmented part is starting to fragment. Because that's inevitably what's going to happen. And look, I don't subscribe to 99% of what Fuentes says either. I think he's a young guy with very little life experience. And he's just a reactionary. He just understands that screaming at the mic is what gets him views.
I will say the one thing, I saw Tucker Carlson's video about the post. And listen, like, I commend Tucker in a lot of ways, but in other ways, he's totally lost the plot. So that post from True Social that I just read, Trump does this sarcastic, he says, praise be to Allah, which I think is crass. I don't think that's appropriate.
He thinks it's crass. Nick Fuentes thinks it's crass.
But Tucker says, how dare you mock Islam? How dare you don't mock Islam? And I'm like, whoa. I'm like, whoa. Is that what's wrong with the post? Like, look, you shouldn't be saying the F word threatening to kill civilians on Easter. Enough said.
Oh, no.
Isn't that enough? I saw Tucker's reaction that went viral. He goes, hey, you don't disrespect Islam. And I'm like, okay, like that's the problem? That's what you have an issue with, that he disrespected Islam? And then Tucker does another one of these convoluted, he goes, if you make fun of someone's religion, it means you think you're God. And you're not God. It's like, what? Like, what the fuck? I don't even know. I can't even understand the connection. We can't mock another person's religion? I agree it's not polite. I agree we probably shouldn't be too flippant about it. But I also think that Christianity is the true religion, and we should point out the faults in other religions. And I don't think it's necessarily the worst thing all the time to be mocking. I don't think the president should. I don't think the president should on Easter or during a war. But it's like, that's the part that you took umbrage with? He goes, you don't mock Islam. We are not a theocracy at war with theocracies. I'm like, what is this guy doing? This is a freestyle. I don't know what direction you're taking this in, pal. So I commend him. It was directionally it was good. But I read the post and I said, you definitely shouldn't be threatening to kill civilians and dropping F-bombs and mocking God, like in general, on Easter. But this whole, like, don't you dare mock Islam, it's like, okay, so is he getting money from Qatar? Like, what the fuck is going on there? Is he getting money from these people? Because that's just like a little out there.
I don't frankly care what it is. They're both goose. They're both just goose. And that's why Fuentes, anytime he goes on somebody else's show, says reasonable things. Because he doesn't have strong convictions. He's a reactionary. And that's fine. But I don't think there's any principle there. Or I think there's very little. And I think the little that there is, I think is pretty misguided most of the time. I can appreciate the criticisms of Donald Trump on Easter saying those things. I don't love the mocking either. I don't mind the mocking of Islam. Because frankly, if you're, a radical terrorist group in Iran, fuck you, you're cowards. You hide behind civilians. You beat women and children. You put rifles in the hands of 10-year-old boys to fight your fight because you're pussies. So I don't have any problem mocking you. But, do I love the president doing it? No, I don't love it. I also know that that's what Trump does. And you're never going to hear me to tell you to vote for fucking Democrats. Certainly not the psychotic ones we have at the moment that are talking about banning conservatives from the internet and holding trials if they ever get power again. Because I'm not happy with something Trump tweeted. I've said for a long time, don't fucking listen to what he says. It only matters what he does. And that's true generally speaking. About anybody. Develop your own conclusions. Let's finish on a crazy liberal. This comes from the Hodge twins, who also, I have no idea what's fucking happened with these guys. At least on their X profile. Now, apparently, what they tweet on Facebook and what they tweet on X are two entirely different things. It would appear maybe that they've hired some sort of manager to run their social media that is just going for maximum engagement and doesn't care about any sort of principle. And if that's true, Hodge twins, then for fuck's sakes, get control of your shit. I love these guys. They're hilarious. But if you're going to get into the politics stuff, on the conservative side, you have to have some sort of principle. You have to be consistent. You should be anyway, because credibility is the only thing we have left. We don't have the luxury of not having credibility. But regardless, this isn't inherently political in and of itself, so just another crazy leftist.
Yeah, got a new show for y'all. A damn good show. You will not believe what this woke judge did. Well, I can see from that. She's really woke. Look at the flag beside she got. Yeah, that is crazy. If you go in the judge's courtroom and you see her face, you already know what she's about. And then you see this.
And this is really important, guys. Look at her here, okay? Because we're going to see her 4 years. This is 4 years ago. We're going to see her now. So over a 4-year difference. Something has changed. And I'm pretty sure it's mental health.
Like, oh man, I'm done. Yeah. This woman's gonna be a psycho. But I'm gonna start with a little backstory. Check out this full story, and then it leads up to what she did.
A Bexar County judge still fighting to show her pride more than a year after being forced to take the display down. Back in 2019, following a complaint from a local lawyer, Judge Rosie Speedlin Gonzalez was ordered to remove her rainbow pride flag from her courtroom.
But that is not where that story ended, nor was that the only thing she was asked to get rid of. Erica Hernandez spoke to the judge about her fight to bring those things back to her courtroom and why she still feels this was a personal attack.
In 2018, Judge Rosie Speedlin Gonzalez became the first openly gay judge to be elected in Bexar County. Within months of taking the bench, a complaint was made by...
Why? Why did you need an openly gay judge? Was she the best qualified candidate, or was she just gay? I don't have a problem with a gay judge, but something tells me she was just gay. Within a month of her taking the bench, there was a complaint.
A local defense attorney to the State Commission on Judicial Conduct about the rainbow pride flag she had in her courtroom.
It came across very much like I was being targeted and discriminated against.
And it wasn't just the...
Using a rainbow pride flag sidewalk as her background on the video.
Rainbow...
Is that not a political statement?
Pride
I get
flag
it. She's not in court for that. But does she use that when she's doing court via video, which is very common these days?
She was forced to remove.
I was also ordered to remove all rainbows from the courtroom.
Yeah.
My mouse pad, the pen that I used,
It's inherently political.
The robe where I had a sarape color.
Wow, she's got rainbows everywhere. I don't care about the mouse pad because I don't see it. All I care about is that flag. Yeah, but I would feel the same way if it had a bunch of MAGA flags up. Yeah, you're supposed to be impartial and neutral. You don't want to have that appearance about yourself as a judge. Anybody displaying the LGBTQ flag is woke. I have not found not one sane person displaying that flag. Yeah, not one.
Gonzalez states her disappointment is also because other judges across the state have not been required to remove flags or different color robes from their courtrooms.
Are they going to go to these judges who have an Irish flag in their courtroom or wear camouflage?
Okay, first of all, an Irish flag, not political. Still not okay. It's an American courtroom, not political. But yes, they should remove it. Second, I've never seen it, ever. I don't think it exists. And then she says Confederate flags. Come on. There's nobody with a Confederate flag. Not in 2026.
Robe when they want to, or, make sure that out in the rural counties there isn't a Confederate flag flying.
Somebody's flying a Confederate flag inside of a courtroom? Yeah, she's Irish flag? Yeah. Nobody's flying an Irish flag in a courtroom. And even if they did fly a Confederate flag, if they're doing it at the house, that's fine. Right. It's the crazy presentation inside of a courtroom, which is the problem. Now, if you're displaying a state flag and it's got the Confederate flag in that flag, which some states do, yeah, that's fine. Yeah, but a judge, lawyers, they're supposed to be logical people. You have to take the LSAT. You have to score a certain level when it comes to logic and reason for you even to become an attorney. When you pass the bar, you have to pass all these logical reasoning. Right. To weed out the psychopaths, the woke people. How the hell did she become a judge? That doesn't make any sense. She's right there comparing apples to oranges. What are you going to do if somebody has an Irish flag? Right. She can't even be impartial within her own life. How can she be impartial?
She's making her day.
Exactly.
She has since made an appeal on the ruling and is awaiting to get her day in court, which can come later this year. And as she waits, she's making sure to continue to be a leading advocate for the LGBTQ plus community any way she can.
She doesn't even have the flag in her office. Yeah, but she had it in the courtroom. I don't care if maybe they made her take it out of everywhere. Well, she had it in full display inside the courtroom. I don't care if you got it in your office, not in a courtroom. It doesn't belong there. Yeah.
It's become a year-round type of approach to life, to live authentically.
You have to display the flag to live
is actually
authentically.
4 years old. The video you just
Everybody
saw.
has
now,
to know you're gay to live
shit done hit the
authentically.
fan now.
A county court judge
There she is now.
indicted, accused of
Till we
having
get a
an
little closer. All right, so she's been indicted for what?
attorney handcuffed and kept in a jury box.
She
Look at her now.
handcuffed an
Look
attorney.
like she's on testosterone and everything. A little Ozempic too.
Not healthy looking, that's for
Be
sure.
handcuffed and kept in a jury box. Judge Rosie Speedland Gonzalez turned herself in this afternoon on both felony and misdemeanor charges.
KSAT Investigates broke the story 2 weeks ago, and Dylan Collier continues to follow through now that the case has gone to a grand jury.
Judge Rosie Speedland Gonzalez's legal ordeal began December
She looks so much
17,
worse.
2024.
And I don't
during
say
an
that to be
argument
rude.
with defense attorney
say
Elizabeth
that out of
Russell
concern.
inside County Court 13. Speedland Gonzalez ordered Russell to be handcuffed. Court transcripts show the judge berated the attorney while she sat restrained in a jury box.
Is that the judge's job?
Russell, who declined comment today, filed a criminal complaint. Earlier this month, KSAT Investigates exposed the incident and spoke with former employees who worked in Speedland Gonzalez's court. They described the judge's behavior as increasingly erratic. The 2-count indictment accuses Speedland Gonzalez of unlawful restraint by a judge, a second-degree felony, and misdemeanor official oppression.
Wow, she's being charged with oppression. Look what she's wearing.
The irony.
You could tell she's a nut just by looking at her. Yeah.
And Speedland Gonzalez did not respond to a request seeking comment. Records show she turned herself in
Shocking.
just after noon and was released from custody around 2 o'clock.
All right, so now that she's not in custody, Dylan, what ultimately happens to the judge moving forward?
Yeah, she has an opponent in the March primary, which is now just over 4 weeks away. The State Commission on Judicial Conduct could also move to suspend her, which we have seen happen in 6-7 months. Uvalde County, Frio County, we saw it play out that way. So I expect the commission to move forward in the coming days. Probably will act quickly. Not sure what that discipline will be, though.
So
if there is no discipline, I'm sure she's in a woke area.
I don't mind there being
right?
no
I mean, she's
discipline
made it this far.
necessarily, depending on
This will actually
how long she detained
galvanize
her
the
and all that,
community
as long as
to
she's
support
fired.
her if they don't like remove her from the bench. Yeah, but what she's the obstacle in front of her, she actually arrested a defense attorney and locked her for no reason. Yeah, she's actually being charged with oppression.
until that happens, if it does at all, can she still preside over court cases even though she's under indictment?
Flat out rule in Texas that prevents her from hearing cases while under felony indictment. The commission, as I said, could move quickly to suspend her from her duties. We've been checking with them all afternoon and have not seen any action so far on their part. The other thing that could play into this is the other county court judges could pressure her to step aside until this legal situation is finished.
All right, you'll follow it for us.
Thank you.
Thank you.
You bet.
That story is nuts. I see a future security guard. That's what she gonna be doing. That's her future career. Observe.
All right. Shout out to the Hodge twins. Again, I don't know what's been going on in your Twitter, X page, whatever, but hopefully you get that straightened out. Anyway, you can find us JBU_show on X. JBU@USA.com to send me an email directly. Rumble.com/user/justbetweenus. Don't forget to check out my co-host, Austin from the Miller Talk podcast, MillerTalk_pod, or MillerTalk.substack.com. And we'll be back tomorrow, 8 p.m. Might try for 6, but probably 8 p.m. West Coast time. It depends on if Austin is here or not. Follow the X page, x.com/JBU_show to get the notifications when we go live. With that, my name is Chris, and this has been the JBU Show.
Bye, 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 bye. Wait, I want to be a little bit louder.
Yeah.
This is only between us.
This is just between us.
This is just between us.
Perfect. 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 Perfect.